Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Human Pulse podcast, where we talk about living well with technology. I'm Fabrice Neuman, a tech consultant for small businesses.
And I'm Anne Trager, a human potential and executive performance coach.
We are recording this on June 1st, 2025.
Human Pulse is never longer than 30 minutes, so let's get started.
So, Anne, I have a problem.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Yeah, so it's pretty clear that this podcast is all about living well with technology, and it's been getting harder lately, for me at least. So, so for our main subject today, I'd like to talk about search. I mean, internet search, of course, and how the evolution of tools and, how many there are makes it more difficult for me to choose and to get the results. And frankly, it's all having a negative effect overall. But first, I wanted to follow up on the robot vacuum incident. The infamous. Yeah, I think probably our most loyal listeners might remember that on episode 2, you told the story about how a robot vacuum we were using at the time basically drove you berserk, getting stuck under the bed and such. So since then, we've been testing another robot vacuum, and this one I just put back in the box.
Yay!
All right. Well, long story short, it wasn't really working either. The thing is, I don't think it's as much related to this particular model of vacuum as it is related to the concept, the basic concept of a robot vacuum, which is why I'm not mentioning the brand names, because I don't think it would serve any purpose. But let's say, so these robots are supposed to make our life easier, and I think they're not. Basically, for our usage, maybe some others have other ways to use them, but for them to be efficient, you need to move the furniture so that the robot can go everywhere. So you put the chairs up, and you try to basically clear the way for the robot, right? And so it means, I would say, a lot of work to let the robot work.
So I hear you. I hear you.
And we're not talking even like about the baseboards that robot vacuums, so they don't take care of. I heard of a couple of models able to do that, but I don't think I'm going to try them for that particular matter. So,
okay.
So what's happening?
So I'm kind of reminded of that instinct. I mean, I see you putting up all the furniture, and I just don't do that. but I see you doing it. Okay. And I'm kind of reminded of that instinct that many of us have to clean the house before somebody comes in to clean the house. And I'll admit being guilty of that. And I don't know what drives that. Okay. Or washing the dishes before they go in the dishwasher. Now, I have never done that. I know that the dishwasher will pretend, if you rinse the dishes beforehand, maybe the machine will last longer. But hey, my optimization thing is really about my own time, and washing the dishes before I put them in the machine is not one of those things that I do. But about the vacuums, I know that you know that I have a very short fuse when it comes to tech. If it isn't easy, and if it doesn't make my life easier really quickly. I mean, I have zero tolerance for having to put effort into making things easier when it comes to tech, which is kind of weird. Mm. And that reminds me what Dr. Jared Lynn Hogg said on our last episode about living well with technology being when technology disappears. So my theory about people who...
And boy, doesn't it disappear.
Not with those vacuum
robots.
Cleaners. Oh, my God. I mean, just the other day, you had given it another try and whatever, and it had made all those beeps and noises saying, I'm going back to my stand right now. And I'm like, okay, well, you're on a stand, you're quiet. And I went to watch a little something. And then in the middle, at like right the very climax moment of that series, I hear the vacuum. It goes... toot, 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 and then it starts making all this noise, and then it starts vacuuming again. For what reason? I have no idea.
Yeah,
I mean, it
was the way of this time, yes.
It was crazy. It was totally crazy. Anyway, my theory about people who enjoy their vacuum cleaners, their robot vacuum cleaners, is that they run them when they are not home, when nobody is around. Maybe, and then they don't pay attention to any of those notifications saying I'm stuck or I'm out of this or I'm going back to my stand and so forth.
Well, so it was the plan actually, but the thing is, what I missed was that I launched it when we both were away, but it went back to its station to recharge before finishing the whole sweep. Which is why it started again by itself. At some point, it had enough charge to finish the job. But at that time, you were there, I was not, and so it was a whole, story. And I guess that was the last straw.
Well, also, if you look a little too closely at the corners after it has done its thing, my temptation, if I look too closely at the corners, is to actually go clean those corners. Mm-hmm. So anyway, there is another option in this theory, and that is that I am just expecting too much from this machine, which is possible. Whatever it is, even before you had put it back to the box, I personally had returned to my handheld vacuum because it actually took me less time to do what I wanted it to do.
Yeah. I guess it's just I'm disappointed. So the promise is here, but the realization is not, as far as we are concerned. So
not yet, at least with two options. Actually, three. Yeah,
that's exactly right. So I guess I'll keep trying a few things, but I'm being very wary about robot vacuums for now. Anyway, that was the follow-up I wanted to get to because it seems that robot vacuums might be a regular fixture of this podcast. Okay, let's
wait before we leave that topic. I was listening to some podcast, and I'll try to find what it is and put it in the show notes, where a fellow was saying that it's really kind of too bad that we can't yet speak with our machines, our robot vacuums, our refrigerators, our dishwashers, because we would have a different relationship with them if we could speak to our machine. I mean, we're very attached to our refrigerators. I mean, who goes to the refrigerator in the middle of the night and looks in it and says, oh, I'm a little hungry, what could I eat? And that kind of thing. I mean, we actually have a relationship with these tools. And what was being said in this podcast was that, well, maybe we're missing out on an entire opportunity to have another kind of relationship with these tools. Okay, I'm not quite there yet, but I thought I'd bring it up. It's food for thought.
Well, it's very interesting because we've been talking a lot about voice mode here as well, and I like voice mode. And I think this is where the whole industry is trying to go to, to replace as a new interface. We went from keyboards to mouse, basically, with graphical user interfaces. And it seems that the new frontier, if you will, is to do everything by voice. And we're really not there yet because we see that you cannot do everything through voice. Basically, I think it means that we need multimodal interfaces where you can use voice, hand, keyboard, mouse, whatever, depending on the needs and depending on the results that you want to reach. But to go on with this conversation, I also think that for those robots we're talking about are those, basically round machines. First of all, they're round machines that try to go into corners. That's kind of weird. But also, basically, they're not really good enough for an environment that has been made to be lived in by humans. And so I think it's somewhat of a demonstration that the best robot is the humanoid robot that can actually adapt more potentially easily when we are all caught up with techniques that with which we can make those humanoid robots efficiently, so they can replace us in some of those menial tasks because they can use the same tools.
Well, so humanoid and humanoid deal, I don't know how you would say that, interactive. that ability to interact like a human being. And this is what I thought was interesting in this commentary the fellow was making, that it's not so much the shape factor here. The dishwasher does what it's supposed to do, and it's square. Okay? The refrigerator does what it does, and it's a big rectangle. So what is the opportunity of actually interacting with that machine with which we have, or those machines with which we have a pretty deep relationship? I mean, the dishwasher is at least once a day, the refrigerator is several times a day that we're interacting. I mean, what would that change? This is taking it to a whole nother level. And again, I agree, we're not there yet. When you're having a voice interaction with one of these with the tools that do have voice interaction, it's not quite there yet. It's not, I mean, I'm just trying to imagine I'm having this thing going through when that vacuum started up again, the dialogue we would have had.
That would have been PG rated.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how interesting would that have been? Anyway, so off topic.
Well, so not exactly off topic, but yeah, there's another main topic we wanted to consider today. And the main subject I wanted to talk about is internet search. I've been thinking about this for weeks now, and the whole thing basically consolidated after all the search features Google announced during its developer conference, Google I/O, that took place on May 20th, 2025. And basically, they announced many things, but they really pushed their new AI mode in search, which basically means that they will be replacing soon enough, and sooner than later, the traditional list of links that you get when you type a request, by replacing it by sentences, paragraphs, like something you can read. And we didn't wait for Google to use chatbots, ChatGPT, Perplexity. I know you're a big user of Perplexity, to do like internet search, but they were like basically compared to Google's side projects, right? There was internet search by Google, and then other quote unquote, sorry for all those heavy users, like toys that you can try and use for internet search. But if Google does it, then it changed the game, right? Because everybody goes to Google for search. But the thing is, and this is where it's linked to the living well with technology, to me at least, it makes it more difficult to choose the right tool. Which one is the good one? And I'm losing time and sometimes my mind over like what kind of tool I can use. So I was wondering how you manage. Help.
Okay. Wait. You're kind of freaking me out. I mean, you are the only person I know to remain completely, totally calm around tech all of the time. The complete opposite of me. And now I hear you like asking me for help.
Yes.
This is my world being turned upside down. Okay, so let's just both of us take a deep breath in, and then extend your exhale just a little bit longer than usual. And let's calm down the nervous system, okay?
Well, I'm talking about time management. This is your area.
Okay, about search. I'm not in the details as much as you are. I don't question the tools. I use DuckDuckGo because you recommended it to me years ago, and when I wanted to move away from Google for I don't remember what reasons, maybe something you said, and I've just used it ever since. Right? Why should I question? It works. If it works, don't fix it. Don't change it. I know that's not your approach because your job is to test out all of these new things. I mean, I even get a little weirded out when I'm in a Microsoft session on Edge or something like that, and I do a search and it automatically comes up in Bing. I'm like, what is this thing? Okay. And then I'm like, oh yeah, it's Bing, whatever, whatever. Okay. But other than that, I never actually think about search. I just search. Until recently, actually it was probably about a year ago, I noticed that search quality in general started dropping. I wasn't getting the same quality of responses. So I actually started saying, okay, if it's not working here, I'm going to try here. And I don't know, a little frustration and maybe searching a little bit less. So moving away from it. So I hear what you're saying. There is a kind of frustration that's building up. And now my trend is to use AI as a search tool, which is probably not the most efficient either, for all of the reasons we've talked about previously on our.
Yeah. So, but that raises the question, is AI the right tool for search? And I don't think we have the answer yet. And it brought also to me the, it's been since the beginning, Google always said that being able to manage your personal information is one key to get better results, because it can rely on who you are and where you are and what you do to provide more targeted answers, right? It's always the same thing. Basically, people take for granted that if you search, you go onto Google.com and you search for a pizza joint. What you want is a place near you, right? And so you give your browser access to your location, and it will give you a better answer than if you don't give it access to your localization, because there's no need for you to, if you're in Paris, to get a pizza joint in New York. It's always the same thing. And they really hammered it during Google I/O, saying we can use, and they called it personal context. Well, we can if you want, but knowing Google, it's by default. So it's always the reverse. If you don't want it, you have to deactivate it. Use your search history, your YouTube history, the document you have in Google Docs, whatever Google can have access to through your Google account. And it does make sense sometimes for the pizza joint example I gave, but sometimes also it doesn't work. I remember this example when I asked ChatGPT a few months ago who I was, to get a profile or something like that. And I got answers which were good, and also a paragraph about my love for aviation, which is not a love for me, but I'm interested because our daughter flies, right? And so I did some search on planes and stuff like that, and ChatGPT assumed, quote unquote, I'm anthropomorphizing, obviously, that it was me. It was about me as well. So the personal contextualization is not always pertinent. That's the other question is that, do you want any search tool or any tool to actually remember everything that you do with it?
So again, this is a question of, I can see how helpful that can be and how interesting it is. And then I'm like, well, then how do you get creative? Like how do you have any sort of spontaneous encounter with something you're not expecting, which is what helps us to be creative, if it's just giving me stuff that I'm expecting or that's related to what I've already done in the past. It's the whole thing about, how do you get anything new if it's only comes from something in the past? The whole problem with AI is it's based on stuff we've already done. All of the full database is stuff that we've already done. So how does it really create anything? I think that what it does is it provides these AI can provide some sort of weird juxtapositions that will allow us to create things. But other than that, so that's the first thing, is creativity. Sometimes I like to walk down the street and see something I've never seen before. How's Google going to allow me to do that? Always been a question for me. Secondly, I'm thinking of the times when I used to translate thrillers and mysteries. And I was doing a lot of internet search about violent crimes and things like that. I mean, actually, I remember using, asking you how I could not have that all in my search. I was asking that question about Google already because I didn't want then to get, to get advertisements to buy guns or anything like that. I mean, just didn't want that, it was kind of weird. But so now the whole thing is, what would AI think of me, in that context? Anyway, so there are all of these considerations, and because I'm a messy, contradictory human being, I think it's very cool that it will remember things, and I think it's very useful. I use Perplexity, and they have spaces where you can upload documents and links and give specific instructions. And this gives me a space, or the word is well chosen, to brainstorm different projects and to work on ideas without mixing it up with everything else. I also like Google's Notebook LM, where you can create your own little language model with the documents of all sorts that you can bring together and then work from that. That's really cool. And I know ChatGPT has memory functions, but I haven't played with those yet. So all of this is very tempting and exciting as well. And once again, I have strayed from the topic of search. You want to talk about search. So let's just face it. I have come to the realization that search is not quite as sexy a subject as AI, is it?
Well, I see what you're saying, but there's a relation between those two, right? Because search is becoming more and more AI.
Yes.
And this is where it all becomes more fuzzy. The difference between the two, and I would like to mention, it seems like also Google is actually looking for an answer to that, and they're not very clear on it yet. I would mention another podcast I listen to. The podcast name is AI Inside, and they interviewed Nick Fox. He's the head of search at Google, and right after the announcements of all those AI mode and AI overviews and all the AI stuff that's being embedded into search. And there are lots of good questions in that interview about, what it meant and how to make the difference between those tools. And to me, at least, the answers were not very clear, which brings me to the whole thing, which is, to me, the main question is simplicity. Right? And it seems that search became more and more complex. And so it's not as disappearing as it could be, to quote Dr. Geraldine Hogg again. And I don't know where it's going to go, but to me, so it's a transition phase, which is probably why I'm thinking about it so much, aside from my geekiness. But so that's the thing. You've been saying that you've been using DuckDuckGo for a number of years because it simply works. I would mention as a side note that, even the slightest change, it can be hard to fathom. And you mentioned Bing, and you have to know that DuckDuckGo is basically Bing. It's based on Bing. But you going on Bing was disorientating.
Yeah, it didn't look the same. And
you would get basically, I think, the same result.
I never compared them because I don't have time for that. I'm doing other things.
Why would you, right? Yeah. But even what I mean by that is that even the slightest change can be disturbing. And so after like more than 2 decades of a pretty stable way of searching for information on the web, it's all in flux because of AI, or thanks to AI. We still don't know, right? Yeah. But to stay optimistic, because this is who I am, it also feels to me that the science fiction of my younger years is becoming reality, and that I love, because all those tools where you can talk to a computer and get an answer the same way, and have a conversation. I mean, this is something I dreamed of. I read a lot about stories like this, and so I love that.
Okay. So let's remain optimistic, and we can attack the subject of what this means for websites and content producers at another time.
Yes.
And let's just stay on that high level of, at some point, maybe we'll be interacting and having all kinds of really cool relationships with all of our different machines. And presumably they will be different than the relationships we have with human beings. Hopefully they will not be quite as messy, or maybe it's that messiness that makes our relationship with human beings so wonderful. Anyway, that is it for episode 18. Thank you all for joining us. Please do visit humanpulsepodcast.com for links and past episodes.
And thank you for subscribing and reviewing wherever you listen to your podcast. It helps other people find us.
And please do share this podcast with one person around you.
And with that, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye, everyone.